Hello, church family. Welcome to today's Sunday school lesson. We are in session 3. The audio is recording. This will be the only recording. Crossing my fingers, praying to the Lord that that is the truth. Anyway, we are in session 3 entitled The Land, and our key idea this week is God requires obedient faith in the face of fear. And our scripture this week is Numbers 13:17 through 31. So quite a bit of scripture to get through today. But we're going to start off by asking the question, what was the last project you had that was more complicated than you thought it would be? For me, it was the hanging of some overhead storage in our garage. So if you don't know, this room is our loft. It is very small. That is the wall. The other wall is literally right here behind the camera. So it's a very narrow room. And I can actually show you, excuse the dog toys on the floor. We do have dogs, but I can show you very quickly. This is the whole room. Grace's desk is behind me. This is my desk. It's a very small room. This room is right above our garage, and right below me is Grace's car, or my car. And there is no overhead storage in there. There was no overhead storage until Matthew and I installed it a couple of weeks ago. And when we did so, we had to find the ceiling joists. We had to find the way to get it up there, and we did, and we got it all hooked up and screwed in and anchored in and everything. But it took us a long time to get there. There was a lot of math involved. There was a lot of double checking. There are more holes in the ceiling than there ought to be from drill bits and us trying to find studs and not finding studs, and then having to move the entire contraption over because we had studs that would not work for what we needed. So anyway, that job was supposed to be maybe a 4-hour job. You know, you figure out how to get the first one in and the second one goes in much quicker. That was true, but instead of 4 hours for the whole project, it took us closer to about 6.5, 8 hours of total time from the start of the job till the end of the job, but about 6 hours or 6.5 hours of working time on it. I don't know why the video seems to be stuttering. Everything is correct in my settings and everything, so I apologize for that. So don't be distracted by that. I apologize. So anyway, projects can grow. When you start a project, when I start a project, I often find that I have to do a lot of prerequisites to start the job that I need to get done. For example, normally on Mondays and Tuesdays, I will cook dinner. I'll get home from church or from work. Grace and I will go to the gym together on Mondays. And then when we get home, I start getting dinner cooked, whether it's something on the grill or something in the kitchen. I typically cook dinner on Mondays and Tuesdays. And a lot of times we have eaten over the weekend and not done dishes on Sunday afternoon for whatever reason. Laziness, not wanting to, not thinking about it, whatever. And so in order to start cooking dinner, I have to start doing dishes first. And then in order to do dishes, I have to empty the dishwasher or start the dishwasher, unfortunately, sometimes where nothing is done. And then I go, we're just having, we're going to have leftovers tonight. We're going to eat off the fine china. And I grab the paper plates off the fridge, and that's what we have for dinner. Instead of cooking, we just find random leftovers in the fridge and eat those. But a lot of times, we start these projects excited for them. We start these projects, ready to get things done, ready to hit the road, hit the ground running rather. But about halfway through, we go, what were we thinking? Is this too much? This is a lot more complicated than we had realized when we set out. So we're going to see something similar with the nation of Israel. So just some context. As the people of Israel were moving through the wilderness from Egypt into the Promised Land, they're going across the Sinai Peninsula, the Gulf of Aqaba, which is its modern day name. They came to the northern end of the Gulf of Aqaba and continued northward into the wilderness of Paran. In this context, wilderness means a vast desert. This is a dry, barren wasteland. It was uninhabitable due to its lack of water and resources. Then it continued into Kadesh, also called Kadesh Barnea. This is an oasis between the wilderness of Paran and the wilderness of Zin. Moses and the Israelites remained in Kadesh while spies went into Canaan, the land God promised to Abraham. So the climate and resources of Canaan were dramatically different than that of Egypt, than that of the desert. A huge issue was water. Egypt had a major river system that fed canals and irrigation fields, making food production possible. Canaan did not have this. Canaanites relied on the rainy periods, so they didn't have these. Lush river systems. Like if you think back to the Garden of Eden with the Tigris River and the Euphrates River running through the Garden of Eden and making that such a fertile area. So winter is cool and rainy. Summer, which lasts from mid-May to mid-October, is hot and receives no rain. The early rains break the annual drought and allow the farmers to work the fields and plant crops. So this area is dry yet fertile, but it's not anything like what the Israelites were used to. They were used to Egypt, where it was wet and fertile there along the Nile River, as the Nile flowed to the Mediterranean, they had all of the resources and all of that fertile soil and silt that was brought along with the Nile from further south in Africa. They were able to plant and grow there. And so now they don't have that resource. And so we see the struggle with that and just having that context of what is going on in Canaan as far as agriculture. So we're going to be looking at when Moses sends scouts into Canaan and what they return and that information, and we'll see some decisions that have to take place. So there, verse 17, we're going to read all the way through verse 31. When Moses sent them out to scout out the land of Canaan, he told them, "Go up this way to the Negev," which is a river. I believe, no, the Negev is a desert. Sorry. To the Negev. To the Negev. I'm looking that up very quickly. Numbers 13. What is the Negev in the Bible? The Negev is the desert. I thought it was. I just wanted to double check. The Negev is a desert. It means dry land. So he's telling them, go up this way to the Negev and then go up into the hill country. See what the land is like and whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. Is the land they live in good or bad? Are the cities they live in encampments or fortifications? Is the land fertile or unproductive? Are there trees in it or not? Be courageous. Bring back some of the fruit from the land. It was the season of the first ripe grapes. So they went up and scouted the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob, near the entrance to Hamath. Then they went up to the Negev and came to Hebron, where Ahiman, Shishai, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, were living. These are Anakites. We've heard that term before. Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. So this is an old city, is what this is saying. When they came to the Eshcol Valley, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes, which was carried on a pole by 2 men. They also took some pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Eshcol Valley because of the cluster of the grapes the Israelites cut there. At the end of 40 days, they returned from scouting out the land. So these men were in the land of Canaan for 40 days, over a month. This is about, just over 4 weeks. Just over 8 times 7. 4 times 7 is 28. 5 times 7 is 35. Just over 5 weeks, almost 6 weeks of time scouting out the land. The men went back to Moses, Aaron, and the entire Israelite community in the wilderness of Paran and Kadesh. They brought back a report for them and the whole community, and they showed them the fruit of the land. They reported to Moses, "We went into the land where you sent us. Indeed, it is flowing with milk and honey." That's a metaphor. We'll get to that in a little bit. "And here is some of its fruit. However, the people living in the land are strong, and the cities are large and fortified. We also saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites are living in the land of the Negev. The Hethites, the Jebusites, the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live by the sea along the Jordan." Then Caleb quieted the people in the presence of Moses and said, "Let's go up now and take possession of the land, because we can certainly conquer it." But the men who had gone up with them responded, "We can't attack the people because they are stronger than we are." And we will see the consequences of that just in I believe we'll get to that in a moment. But this is where we see that number 40, those 40 days that the spies and scouts spent in Canaan. We'll see where that number 40 comes into play shortly. We know that there is stuff that happens because of it. If you just saw something fly, there was a piece of dust or something. Anyway, our first section, the task outline. This is verses 17 through 20. Then Moses sent them out to scout to the land. I can't read tonight. When Moses sent them to scout out the land of Canaan, he told them, "Go up this way to the Negev, then go up into the hill country. See what the land is like, and whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. Is the land they live in good or bad? Are the cities they live in encampments or fortifications? Is the land fertile or unproductive? Are there trees in it or not? Be courageous. Bring back some of the fruit from the land. It was the season for the first ripe grapes." The first ripe grapes, yes. So this is the task outline. This is the task given by Moses to the scouts who are going into the land of Canaan, and he gives them just a list of questions. Answer it. Is it unproductive? Is it fertile? Are there trees? Are there not trees? Are the cities just little camps, or are they fortified structures? Is the land good? Is the land bad? Give us information about this. So first off, what was significant about the land of Canaan? Why did they care so much about it? Well, this is the promised land. This is the land that was promised to Abraham by the Lord when he began to follow the Lord. Remember, this land, the land of Canaan, was, if not once inhabited by the proto-Israelites. I'm talking about before they were the nation of Israel and they were numbered so many. This was the family, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob, who would become known as Israel. His name would be changed to Israel. This is the land where they lived near, and they had seen it. They knew of it. But remember that Joseph became Joseph in the coat of many colors. He became a governor of Egypt and moved his family into Egypt because there was a famine in the area. So he took them from where they were down into Egypt. I'm going to make sure I do this the right direction. So they were up here closer to modern day Israel and what would become Jerusalem. And he moved them down into Egypt because he was a governor in Egypt. They weren't quite as far north as Israel, I don't believe, but regardless, they hadn't seen this land in a long time. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of years had passed. Israel was in slavery for 400 years, from the time of after Joseph died and was forgotten, and then until Moses came. That was about 400 years. And so there were other nations that moved in, and so Moses needed this information. What are the people like? What is the land like? What is the harvest like? But this land is significant because it is the promised land of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is the land that God promised to Abraham in the Abrahamic covenant, and to his children and his children's children. And so that is the nation of Israel here. So what do you imagine these spies were thinking while Moses explained the information he wanted them to bring back? They were probably just thinking, all right, we've got it. They're probably going, what is this land going to be like? What are we going to encounter? They might have been afraid. They might have been nervous, but they did their job. They did go into it. And then what would have caused them to be afraid? it would have been just the unknown, that they had never set foot in this land. It was wildly different than what they had left whenever they had left the nation of Egypt to come into the promised land. And so and I believe that the unknown breeds fear. I think that's true. Grace will tell you that she handles change and new things very well. As her husband, I will lovingly say, no, she does not. She does not handle change the best. She likes things the way they are, and when they change, doesn't matter if that change is good or bad, there is a moment of fear that she has that she has to come to terms with. She has to come to terms with things are changing. In fact, and this is just to brag on her quite a bit, the idea of having a child is a life-changing one, of course. It has been, at least to my knowledge, has not seemed as detrimental to her mental health as I had expected. So, Grace, if you watch this Sunday morning, you're doing a good job. You're going to be a great mom. I know there are a lot of unknowns, but I think you're going to be a great mom, and I don't think this changes for the bad. But you've done a really good managing your expectations for change. Anyway, note to my wife out of the way. Let's look at the land assessed. This is Numbers 13, 21 through 25. So they went up and scouted out the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob to the entrance of Hamath. They went up to the Negev and came to Hebron, where Ahiman, Shishai, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, were living. Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. When they finally came to the Eshcol Valley, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes, which was carried on a pole by 2 men. Let that sink in. It was a single branch of grapes, and it was so large it had to be carried on a pole by 2 men. This was a humongous harvest of grapes. We think of, a cluster of grapes being about yay big, probably. And I don't know about you, but I can carry that cluster of grapes by myself. These people were having to carry it on a stick between 2 of them, on a pole between 2 of them. They also took some pomegranates and figs. That place was called Eshcol Valley because of the cluster of grapes the Israelites kept there. I don't know why that is. I don't know what the word Eshcol means. At the end of 40 days, they returned from scouting out the land. So they went into the land, they assessed the land, and they did what they were asked. And so they were obedient. They were charged with the task. They went and they accomplished that task, and they came back. Notice I said that we would be referring to that number 40 there in verse 25. At the end of 40 days, they returned from scouting the land. Later, Israel would spend 40 years in the wilderness because of their unbelief and because of their hesitance to go into the land. They would spend 1 year for every day that the spies were in the land of Canaan as punishment for not believing in the Lord and heeding Caleb's, what's the word I'm looking for? His call to go and conquer the promised land. So how do we balance acting in faith with gathering information before acting? God will call us to act in faith, but he never calls us to act out of negligence or out of rashness or out of a lack of knowledge. He never wants us to be foolish in our acting or rash in our acting. He wants us to be wise even when we're following him in faith. And the difference there is following in faith, a demonstration of wisdom is knowing God, in our case with the car and everything, God, we don't know how this is going to happen. We don't know how we're going to get through this predicament at hand. Whatever, and it can go, you can insert your predicament there. But the wisdom is knowing that you can't do it on your own, but still following in faith and obedience and going through and saying, but God, not my will, but yours be done. And so however you accomplish it, Father, we are leaning on you and we will do our part, we'll be responsible. But God, we trust for you to take care of the how these things get accomplished. And That's what wisdom, that's what obedience looks like. It's not hemming and hawing over the numbers, should we, shouldn't we? It's saying, this is what God is calling us to do. This is what is very clear from the Lord in his word and from godly counsel and from this, what the Spirit is calling. And so we don't know how, but we trust in the Lord, so we're still going to do it. And that's what Caleb was saying. He's like, we can do this. The Lord is on our side. We can go and certainly conquer it, is what he says there in verse 30. And so God never wants us to act rashly or foolishly, but he does want us to step out in faith, even when the numbers don't make sense, even when the information might be scary for us. So just keep that in mind. All right, our final section, the decision at hand, verses 26 through 31. The first men went back to Moses, Aaron, and the entire Israelite community in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back a report for them and the whole community, and they showed them the fruit of the land. They reported to Moses, we went into the land where you sent us. Indeed, it is flowing with milk and honey. Again, I did say that was a metaphorical statement describing a land abundant in agricultural bounty. Milk refers to the abundance of cattle, and honey refers to the abundance of food. So not really rivers of milk and rivers of honey, but flowing with abundance. And that's the milk and honey was the words used by the Lord to Moses whenever he told him to go back into Egypt and set his people free, that he would show them a land of flowing with milk and honey. And so that's the verbiage that's been used. It's understood to just mean abundant and overabundant. However, verse 28, however, the people living in the land are strong and the cities are large and fortified. We also saw the descendants of Anak there. The descendants of Anak were said to be giants. These were large men, powerful men. The Amalekites are living in the land of the Negev. The Hethites, the Jebusites, the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live by the sea and along the Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people in the presence of Moses and said, let's go up now and take possession. So 10 spies saw only obstacles, while Caleb saw opportunities. The majority opinion, moved by fear, won out. So let's go up now and take possession of the land, because we can certainly conquer it. But the men who had gone up with him responded, we can't attack the people because they are stronger than we are. So they had all the information, and yet they did not have faith because of the dire situation that they saw. And what we need to remember is that when God is on our side and when God is backing us, when God says he will not forsake us, he will overcome the dire situations for us. I was talking to the Kids Praise Kids this last week and said, God desires for you to have good things, or for your desires to have been met. We're going through the song, Praise to the Lord the Almighty, which says, in one of the verses, it says, have you not seen, hast thou not seen how thy desires have been granted in what he ordaineth? And I told them, I said, now, does that mean that God is going to give you all the toys you want, or all the video games you want, or all these things? And the kids obviously know the answer. They know that that question is a leading question, and that the answer is no, that God doesn't care about those things. God doesn't necessarily want them to have the newest technology or video games or toys or whatever, but rather that God shapes our desires to be his desires when we're obedient and follow him. And so he will grant those desires, which are for us to follow him, for us to be growing in him, for us to have good days, and for us to follow in the Lord. That's what he desires of us, and that's what he will fulfill those desires. So with this in mind, with the idea that we can face obstacles with faith, knowing that God is with us, what kind of obstacles might prevent us or delay us from following the Lord? I think financial obstacles are a large one, that there are many people who go, I just don't have the money for that yet. There are a lot of people who say, I can't go into missions because I don't have a way to support myself. I can't go into ministry, say streets, urban street ministry, because I don't have the means to protect myself. I don't have the means to provide for myself. I can't go into, I can't drop my job and go into full-time ministry because I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. And I think that those are wise things to know. But I think if you are truly being called, that the old adage that God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called, I think that plays out here. I think that is wise and true and good. I say it all the time. I was called to lead worship and called to be a into full time vocational ministry as a recent graduate from high school, and I had zero zero professional musical training at that time. I was really smart. I had really good grades in high school. I was going for a science degree. I was going to go into pre-med. I've told many of you this. And God called me out of that into full-time ministry. And I had played the trombone for 6 years at that point in junior high and high school band. I had taught myself guitar. I had recently been really learning music theory through the guitar. But God was telling me to use this talent that he had given me, even though I hadn't been professionally trained, professionally equipped yet, but he was calling me to it. And when he did, I had no answer other than yes, God. There for me, that was a decision that was. I've made this joke before about something else having to do with college. I don't even need to pray about it. Just sign me up. That's kind of what I said. But I was praying about it when God gave me this calling, and I said, "Yes, Lord." And I'm so thankful that 18-year-old Chris was so willing and so in tune with the Spirit back then. I think back to who I was as an 18-year-old and just kind of how foolish I was and all of the things I thought about myself, and yet 18-year-old Chris made one of the wisest decisions that I will have ever made in my life, which is to follow the Lord into full-time vocational ministry. And I've never been more blessed because of it. I can't imagine my life outside of it. And I've thought about what happens if I lose the calling, and it's one of those worries that I think all ministers have is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this going to be what I do for the rest of my life? It's just those doubts that Satan puts in our minds. I don't have a fallback. My degree is literally music and worship and ministry. That is what my degree is in. It's not in computer science. It's not in pre-med. It's not in biology or chemistry or teaching. Because I do have a music degree, I could get certified to teach band or teach music classes and what have you. But other than music ministry, there is no plan B. This was my plan A. I believe this is God's plan A and only plan for my life. I don't believe that there is a plan B. And so I'm thankful that God made the calling very clear, and I'm eternally grateful to the Holy Spirit for making that choice easy for me when I was a teenager and a young man, because my life has been so blessed through it. So I want you to be encouraged by that. Don't listen to this and hear, oh, Chris is so good. Chris did the right thing. Chris is not so good. Chris has had many doubts since he was 18 years old to now that he's 32. There have been many times where I have doubted my calling and said, God, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. Did I do the right thing? But when I look at my life and see the doors that God has opened, the ways he has gotten me through different things, the way he's blessed my life, I couldn't be more blessed or grateful for what he has done through my life, for following him and being obedient in that 14 years ago. So anyway, that is our lesson for today. I encourage you to follow the Lord and be obedient to do what he is calling you to do, whatever that may be. And so go with that. Don't be afraid of what the future holds, even if it is an unknown. Thank you so much for being with me today. I look forward to worshiping with you very soon.